This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
I was thinking about the meetup we had last night. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. Broadcasting from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, Studio A. There's a link. It's a link to all of your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com. Podcasts are free. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Tom's producing the broadcast in Minnesota. Roy Birdsong's with us. Welcome, Roy.
Good morning. How are you? I was thinking about the meetup last night myself. It was kind of almost somewhat comical.
Well, Roy, you know, I was thinking about that this morning, and I remember, you know, I was out in the parking lot with John Dollarheight and Judy Dollarheight and Jason and, you know, some of the other instructors and Janet Randall, and you were inside for a few minutes by yourself. We're not kicked out of Ziggy's, are we?
No, you're not going to let me live that one down, are you? You need to tell your listeners what happened.
We've told the story before. On Friday nights, we used to meet at Ziggy's, and we packed the place. And it was a problem for Ziggy's because they had regular customers that would just be at the motel that's associated with Ziggy's, and that, you know, there was no room for for their other guests and patrons. So we needed to find a place that could house all of us. So we looked all over Springfield, Missouri, and nobody would have us. Nobody. You know, the International House of Pancakes, Howard Johnson's, you know, all the names that you recognize would have nothing to do with us. So there was a supermarket, a very large supermarket, about the size of a Chinese factory outlet, and they had a food court inside the supermarket, and it's called Hy-Vee, HY-VEE. Really, really large place. You could get pizza, subs, Chinese food, Italian food, hot, cold. They had a beverage bar. It was really conducive for what we were doing. It had a large eating area that would hold 178 people or so. So we were able to meet there. And they said, all right, you guys are on trial. You're on trial. We'll see how it goes. And I explained what we do. And so I thought, of all the people who we could have present a seminar that night, Roy Birdsong would be safe. He'd be safe. It's not like having Mike Ma there talking about shooting people and
Yeah.
and you know, all the stuff that Mike Ma talks about, because, you know, with the police and so forth. So I thought, let's be really, really safe. So Roy, you were on, and I don't know, probably within an hour and a half, you got us kicked out of there. You were talking about cell phones, and we got a complaint. We actually got a complaint. So by the way, did you ever go and finally get the real answer from the store managers as to exactly what happened and what we did that got us thrown out of Hy-Vee?
I never did get I never got a good answer from them. They supposedly researched it. They couldn't find anybody. They knew there was a complaint from somebody about the fact that we were talking about cell phones. That was the night that Shannon, my tech, was demonstrating how to make a phone call without having the phone activated using Google Voice. And we were demonstrating that being able to use the phone without actually having the phone connected to any of the contract carriers out there. And we went on, and we noticed that we had a lot of people coming from outside the restaurant area coming over to listen to it. I mean, the crowd just kind of got a little bit bigger and bigger. And these were people that were not normally at the USA Prepares. They just started walking over and listening. And we thought everything was great. Crowd. We didn't foresee any problems at all. Everything went really smooth. In fact, we didn't know until the next morning. We didn't know until the next morning that when they told you that they had a complaint that we wouldn't be allowed back, and it was someone who complained about the fact that we were talking about cell phones and how to save money on cell phones, how to stay away from signing contracts. And so I went up there a couple of days later and asked him. I said, I'd like to know because I'm just dumbfounded. And the general manager, the manager on duty, nobody knew anything about it. They went over there and found the girl that originally handled the complaint, said, yeah, we did have a complaint. She said, I am supposed to email the manager if we ever have a complaint and let him know right off the bat if there's a complaint about the store. And she emailed him, and then the next thing I knew, we weren't allowed back in. So I am the guy that got us kicked out of Hy-Vee. the safe guy.
Well, I don't know what they were thinking because about 110 of us, now let's just round it down to 100. Let's say we spend $100 for gasoline because they have gas pumps out there, so we put $50 in our tank with fuel. We spend $50 on groceries on Friday night. So, I mean, if we each spent the minimum of $100, which is almost impossible to spend that little, on a weekly grocery trip and fuel. So that's 10 grand. That's $500,000 a year that they threw out the window because I've never been back. Seriously, and I don't know any of our class or instructors who goes back to Hy-Vee.
This shows you just how soft the economy is. They respond apparently to any complaint at all, no questions asked. And they just don't want to offend anybody and take a chance on someone saying anything bad about the store because that store had only been in existence, less than 6 months. It'd been up. Mm-hmm. So apparently they were just very, very, very cautious. And probably, as far as I know, I don't think anybody else has had any meetings on the restaurant side. I think we were the first that ever did that. And the group was so large, I don't think they ever expected the group to be that large. And there was a lot of questions being asked, and then there was a lot of people coming up to, like I said, there was a lot of people that were in the store to shop that came over and started listening. So we had a crowd bigger than the crowd that we actually had for the meetup. And the only thing I can figure out is they thought this was going to be too big a deal for them to have and basically squeeze out people who were there to eat in the restaurant. That's the only thing I can come up with because I could not get a solid answer. Yeah.
Well, we're all spending money there, and no matter how many people they had eating at the restaurant, at their restaurant, that pales in comparison to the $10,000 we would spend a night. Seriously.
But you understand, this was just a verbal complaint. They didn't have a form to fill out. They didn't, what offended you, what took place that you were unhappy about. No, there was no form. Most stores that I know of generally have some kind of a format, a form or something that you kind of voice your dislike about whatever went on. They had no record of it. There was no record of it.
Well, the neat thing, Roy, was that the employees there were kind of leaning over and making sure everything was okay. Actually, they were so interested in what we were doing that they probably, diverted their path, their normal path to kind of swing by and listen to what we were doing because it was so unusual for, compared to what their typical day was. As a matter of fact,
this is probably not unusual for big box operations. Where they're so sensitive to anything that goes on now because they're all fighting for the dollar. And they want to stay as benign as they possibly can. And in this day and age, I don't know how you can do that. I haven't seen a store yet be able to stay in the middle of the road which is what they're trying to do, to stay in the middle of the road to not offend anybody, regardless of what their personal feelings are or their political aspirations are or anything. They just shy away from all of that stuff. And big box stores are like that. You can't get an answer out of any of them.
I went over to during your presentation. I kind of wandered off to the adjacent food preparation area where they were making hot meals, and I said to one of the gals behind the counter, I put on my best Columbo, and I said, So what is all this about over there? And she goes, "Oh, well, those are the doomsday people."
Yeah. I've had people say that to me. "Oh, you're part of that group that thinks the world's coming to an end." I said, "No, that's not what this is all about." I said, "Have you been?" We've had in the past couple of years here in the Missouri area, in southwest Missouri, we've had several ice storms. Different storms that we've had that have knocked out the utilities for anywhere from 2 or 3 days to a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks for some people. And literally, they have no clue how to make it through a situation. They have no power source. They don't have any way. If we have a blackout in this country, I'm going to say that probably 60 to 70% of the people in this country won't know what to do, which is why everybody that we're associated with thinks that chaos is going to break out, and you got to be prepared for it, because we're the only ones that's trying to get prepared for disasters, whether it be man-made or natural, to show people how to make it through and how to take care of themselves. And I don't know what these people are going to do if we ever have a situation like that. They're not going to know what to do because they don't think it's going to happen. Even though in this part of the country they lived through some of that.
A lot of those who have gravitated toward us are farmers. You've got a farm, and Mike Knox has one, and Len Pence, and a lot of us have farms, and this is kind of a lifestyle. So it's no big deal. It's just a little bump in the road, and we're prepared for it. Roy, when we come back, can your store, Choose Your Own Wireless, and on Campbell, South Campbell in Springfield, Missouri, your store has become a hangout for USA Prepares students. When we come back, will you tell us a little bit about what happens in your store? It's kind of unusual. Roy Birdsong. We'll be right back. That's the freeze-dry guy called last night, and he said that Yosemite's on fire. You know that. He said the smoke is really significant, the smoke in California, Nevada, Idaho, and Montana. He's unable to be with us today because of the smoke that he was breathing. He's coughing due to the smoke inhalation. That's the freeze-dry guy. And 3,750 firefighters are involved, 15 helicopters, 460 fire engines, over 250 square miles are ablaze, and this blaze threatens 4,500 homes, buildings, and campsites. The point is, a month ago everything was fine. So these things happen, and you need to be prepared for it. So think about what could threaten you and your family. With us is Roy Birdsong, and he is the owner of Choose Your Own Wireless in Springfield, Missouri. I'm going to give you his phone number if you'd like to call the store. He's not at the store available at the moment. He's on the air with us. But 417-823-3715. 417-823-3715 if you'd like to chat with Roy Birdsong right after the broadcast. Or you can call now and leave a message with his team. Roy, your store in Springfield, Missouri has become a hangout for those involved with USA Prepares. What's going on?
Well, you've known me for a long time. I'm pretty vocal about how I feel about things. So much so that it kind of individualizes us. It separates us from most of the other retailers in the area. It's hard to find independent retailers anymore. Most of them have either been run out of business or they've gotten depressed, the economy's bad, and they've just given up and walked away. But my store is kind of a hotbed for conversation. Most of the guys that work for me, my techs, all stay up to date on all the current news, all the political discussions, and we have heated discussions pretty much every time somebody walks in the door. But what's funny was last Monday, we had probably as many people in my store as we have at the meetup almost. Some of them were new people who had just heard you on the air or heard me on the air and came in to get to get phones, to get off of these contracts that they're on with the major carriers. They want to get away from that and cut their phone bill in half. And so some of those people were in there, but they all, and most of them know what we talk about all the time. And they ask me questions. They ask us about the USA Prepared meetings, about the groups, about the individuals and stuff like that. And we have an open discussion on it. But we had, Janet Randall walked in. She was the last one that walked in last Monday. And Janet said, my God, everybody's here. But we had a store full of people, and it was almost comical. We were actually having a meeting before the meetup. But there's a lot of discussion, political discussion, local politics, national politics, how to be prepared. People come in all the time and bring vegetables that they've grown in the garden, give us watermelons, cantaloupes, fresh vegetables, sometimes fresh bread or something they've cooked up and just want us to try. It's kind of an interesting group of individuals who share not only information but share gardening techniques. They share the food that they grow, and they bring it in, and they know that other than just us, a lot of other people will know that they did it, and they don't mind sharing that information with them. But what I've noticed about, a lot of people, there's a lot of people out there that's depressed right now. I'm seeing a lot of depression from just the regular customers walking in there. It's almost like they're worn out and tired. It's every day when they turn the radio on, they hear what's going on in Washington. They can't even talk about it hardly anymore. They're so depressed. But one of the questions they always ask me is, where did Vince go? They're all trying to find out what radio programming you're involved in right now, and I think you probably ought to take a minute and tell everybody exactly how they can listen to you daily. And you're rebroadcast on the Rooster late at night, so that's probably a good spot for most people to catch up on what happened during the day. So okay,
I'll share that when we come back. Roy Birdsong, Choose Your Own Wireless. And when we come back, after I mention how to listen, we're going to talk about anonymous phone calls, how you can make them and be anonymous. No kidding. Would you like your privacy back? We're going to tell you how. Okay. So, Roy, you asked me, how do people listen? So I guess they're coming to your store asking, well, I'm no longer on AM 560 in Springfield, Missouri. They decided that they had better things to do than work with us. So we are available on KYAH, that's AM 540 in Utah, and WBCR AM 1470 Tennessee, KLID AM 1340 Missouri, KUNQ 99.3 FM in Missouri, and that we're on from midnight to 2 a.m. So we go head-to-head with George Norrie's Coast to Coast, so that's fun. Galaxy 19, which is a satellite, you can get about a 30-inch dish and listen, and that covers Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America, and the islands. And then EU Telsat Hotbird 13A, which covers North Africa, the Middle East, Russia, and Europe. Then we have a listen line, which is, I'll give you that number if you'd like to just use your smartphone. Now remember, long-distance charges may apply. That's 605-562-7727, 605-562-7727. Then, of course, we're on Genesis Communications Network, where our broadcast is produced in Minnesota. So that you can listen to that on the internet. And then there's another network that picks us up. That's Liberty News Radio. on the internet. So those are ways that you can listen to us. So what was the next thing you had mentioned, Roy?
Oh, we were talking about, well, actually, before you closed the last session, we were talking about how to make anonymous phone calls, or that's what we were going to be talking about.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and that is something that's really important, because I saw you last night at the meetup, and you were counseling some people about how to do that, and you had a bag phone with you, and I believe you had some small cellular telephones that you can turn off the GPS. So, Roy, I don't want to be tracked. I really don't want to be tracked. For example, when I go to this event in Indiana, I don't want the authorities knowing exactly my path and stopping the vehicle I'm in. I really don't want them to do that. So I don't want to be tracked. So what do we do?
Well, excuse me. There are several things you can do. One, what I find amusing, I was helping a customer last night, and she wanted to get her weather back on her phone. And she did not want GPS turned on, but yet she wanted a special weather app put on there. Well, when you turn that weather app on, you also have to allow GPS for them to be able to tell where your location is so that they can give you the proper weather information. Now, the reason why I find that interesting is almost all of those apps require, and innocently enough, they were designed by web designers or app designers for these apps for these smartphones to supply you with information about weather, whatever it may be, an almanac. There's an app for an almanac. There's all kinds of apps out there. But almost all of them require that GPS be turned on. So we turned GPS off on the phone, but when she wanted that weather app on there, it asked what your current location was. Well, that turned GPS back on again. So if you do not want to be tracked via GPS, then you need to turn off all the appropriate applications that will require that GPS be turned on. Means you'll have to check the weather, you'll have to pull the weather up momentarily each time and not have that application on your phone where it's going to require GPS be turned on. So that's one way you can stop the tracking. The simplest way to do this, and it's become kind of a hotbed of conversation now, is I've got a lot of people coming in and getting phones under anonymous names. For example, we got several Marilyn Monroes running around Springfield with cell phones. We got some Garth Brooks. We got some Robert Duvalls, Hank Williams. People come in, pick their favorite movie star name or country music singer or baseball star or a pro athlete, and they come in, and you can do this on non-contract. You cannot do this on contract. The reason why you can't do this under contract is because they require your name, your address, and all your information, because what are they going to do? They're going to put you under a contract for 2 years, so they want to have all of that information in case you don't pay your bill and they can track you down. On non-contract, there is no long-term obligation. It's month by month. That's what we do. I used to be a Verizon dealer, I sold contract phone service for years, and I quit doing it back in October and went to a non-contract format. So we carry premium MVNOs, not prepaid, premium MVNOs. They look like prepaid, but they're not, because they offer the premium side of the network. In most cases, it's either the same price or it may be $5 higher, but it's well worth it because it gives the consumer more access to the networks other than what prepaid offers. Because all these major carriers out there, they have through their PRLs, they tell those phones what towers they can communicate with. And all of these major carriers out there have a prepaid network that responds to prepaid phones. If you're under a contract, you get more access to the towers other than just the prepaid side. So you get full access to all of the towers, and the premium MVNOs allow you to do that. And I'll use example, probably the biggest thing out there right now with Walmart is Straight Talk. And we have a lot of people coming in trying to get off of Straight Talk because it's only allowing them to access the prepaid side of a carrier's network and not allowing them full access, which means if they're going into an area that's heavily used, they will be the last one, they will be the last position to be able to access and make a phone call because they're not primary in the network. The premium MVNOs give you primary status in the network, so if you're moving in an area that's got a lot of heavy traffic and you need to make a phone call, receive a phone call, you will be placed just like everybody else that's under contract. And this is something the carriers don't want to tell you about. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So I have talked to a number of people with the prepaid plans that you're talking about, those like the Walmart ones, and they cannot make phone calls. They say,
Well,
I just can't get on.
Part of the problem is, and and this is the way it goes, part of the problem is this is Walmart's position. This is the way that they always approach everything. They buy the cheapest thing out there and sell it. Their markup is a lot higher because they buy the cheapest product out there and sell it just below what normal retail is, so it looks like you're getting something very cheap. Mm-hmm. When you buy a straight talk phone through Walmart, you have to buy their phone because it's loaded with their software in it that tells that phone what tires it can use and what tires it can't use. Mm-hmm. They do that because they can, when they buy that from the carrier, whether it be Verizon or AT&T or Sprint or any of them, they buy it at the cheapest possible price. So they're not premium, they're just, basically they were set up originally for just talk and text. What's happened to us in the past 3 or 4 years is this phenomenon called smartphones. So once they got smartphones, they had to go back in and retool and rebuild for smartphones and create plans for them. And that has caused a big problem with them. So they had to go out and have the phones built. Where they have their phones built is in Communist China makes a lot of their phones. They've got the rights to use Samsung's name, Motorola's name. Well, I don't think they can use Motorola's name. But they can certainly use Samsung. They got the rights to use LG's name. So they build phones with brand names on them that their normal cost on these phones coming out of Communist China is anywhere from $35 to $39. And they sell those phones for anywhere from $100 to $150, sometimes $200 for a phone. Some of them are even more than that. But their net cost is a lot lower because they're not built by the normal factories that build the smartphones. They're built in a different factory with different specs. So it makes them a lot cheaper at the net cost. So Walmart can get a bigger spread than most of the contract carriers or most of the regular phone carriers because they have to pay a little bit more for their phones. And so that makes their whole program a lot cheaper. Their net revenue off of prepaid at $45 with Straight Talk is a lot more than the net revenue with Verizon when they're selling a plan. When you're buying a plan from Straight Talk at $45, that same kind of plan on the Verizon side usually runs for one smartphone around $115 to $120. So you can see, but their net spread, the net revenue off of the $125 is a little bit less percentage-wise than what they make off the $45 plan that Straight Talk sells. So that's how they get away with it. And that's why Walmart has picked the cell phone because their spread, their markup on cell phones is a lot greater than most of the other parts of the store of the products that they sell in the Walmart store, except for maybe volume-wise would be in the grocery section. But they have picked that and pushed it because they're making more money off of it.
Well, you're talking about Marilyn Monroe and Garth Brooks and some famous names. So when someone comes to talk to you about having an anonymous phone, I guess you ask them, all right, what name will be associated with this account? And they pick names like Marilyn Monroe, Garth Brooks, Anthony Soprano, names like that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you use a couple of those names, don't you? but, yeah, they do, and that's kind of the anonymity about the whole thing. You can come in, get a phone with us, get a new number, put it under Marilyn Monroe's name, Anthony Soprano, whatever name you want to put it under. Mm-hmm. So now you are listed with that phone number as Anthony Soprano or Marilyn Monroe. You're not listed on that phone number as your regular name. So you get a lot of anonymity there. Now, I tell people this all the time. I said, you can get anonymity. You can put whatever name you want on this. when you're calling to get complete anonymity, there's two things you got to do. Number one is, and I'm seeing a lot of this, my customers are going in and buying prepaid credit cards, and that's what they're paying a lot of their bills with. They're going in and getting prepaid credit cards, and that's what they're using with no name attached to it. I think you've got a couple of those, don't you?
So, so Roy, we're talking about going to Walmart or something like that, getting a prepaid, paying cash, getting a credit card, loading it up with some cash, if you will, Federal Reserve note digits, and then using that in order to pay for your cell plan.
Right, because we all have a history, and that history is going to include payment.
There you go. So that keeps it anonymous from the payment side. And class will be right back and talk about the name side. Class, if you'd like to talk to Roy Birdsong right after the broadcast, you may call the store, Choose Your Own Wireless in Springfield, Missouri, 417-823-3715. 417-823-3715. Roy has been a seminar speaker at every single one of our expos. He has been at all 6 of our expos. So Roy Birdsong and his team are with us. And we see him often at the meetups and here at the farm. And Roy is the guy that I found to help me with my phone service, and that's where I buy mine. I pay the same prices that you do for everything, for the phones, everything else, accessories, and so forth. And Roy is the expert that I go to answer all my questions, and that's why he's on the air with us. This is not a commercial. This is not. It's an endorsement. It's not a commercial. Roy, now when someone buys a phone and gets service, and they say, okay, here's a prepaid anonymous credit card or debit card, I should say. And they pay with that, and they say, please put Marilyn Monroe as the name on this agreement. And they make a phone call, and it shows that Marilyn Monroe is calling. Now, the called party, they need to also put some kind of a name that is not the person's real name also, right? Well,
this brings up a very interesting combination of things. If you're trying to get complete anonymity, first of all, the reason why you don't want to use your real name is because, and porting a number is not going to do you any good to have anonymity, even though you're changing carriers, because all of us have a history with that phone number. So if they're trying to track you and they really want to track you, they can take that phone number and go back through the historical frame of reference on that number, and they will find you, and they will know who it is that's using that phone. So you have to change your name, and you have to get a new phone number, one that's not associated with you. So when you call, if you are Marilyn Monroe or Garth Brooks or whatever, if you're using that to call friends or relatives or people like that, they need to store your name in their phone as Garth Brooks on that particular number. I'm not suggesting that, and some people have done this, but I'm not totally convinced that you can do away with your regular historical phone number, the one that you've used forever. You can still use that under your real name. But for important phone calls, things that you don't want to be listened in on, you can have a separate number under a pseudo name, Garth Brooks, Marilyn Monroe, whatever name you want, and that number needs to be programmed into everybody that's calling. They don't need to program it in under your real name. They need to program that number in under the pseudo name that you used. That way, if it's ever tracked and they're trying to pull up all the past phone calls, it will pop up on all of the ensuing phone numbers if they're trying to track you down, that will appear as Marilyn Monroe, Garth Brooks, not as Frank Lovejoy, not as Frank Smith or Adam Smith or whatever your real name is. So it needs to be programmed into their phone as the pseudo name that you picked out to use for that particular phone number.
And I kind of like the idea of having maybe 14,000 Marilyn Monroes. I really like that idea.
Well, and I'm pitching that, believe it or not. A lot of people are coming in, and when we tell them, they say, well, what name should I use? I said, well, I would use Marilyn Monroe, because I like your idea. If we had 50 Marilyn Monroes running out there, how are they going to know which Marilyn Monroe belongs to which phone? because they're all Marilyn Monroes.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, well, gee, what if, because we all know the government can track us. Regardless of what you do, they can still track your phone. They can use triangulation on the phone call. The difference is, if they ever pull you over and say, we've triangulated you and you're using this phone to make this phone call, you're going to look at them and say, you know what, I just found this phone laying on the street. I don't know who it belongs to. You know, it's a really neat phone. I was thinking about keeping it for myself. So there's no association with you. And even if they know it was actually you, how are they going to prove it?
Roy Birdsong, choose your own wireless. Now you know why he's one of us. 417-823-3715. 417-823-3715. That's the number of his store. Roy, I think Mike Parsons is calling in. I believe he's going to be with us for the second hour. Roy, thanks so much. I really appreciate you being with us, class. Seriously, consider an anonymous phone plan, and you can do it with the way we said. We'll be back after top of the hour news.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? This is hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. Mike Parsons is with us. Mike from Tennessee, as you've heard him. And he's on the road. And Mike, have you just pulled over? Is that what you're doing? You pulled over, or are you in a parking lot, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm stationary for the moment. I just decided to take a break and give you a call in and share a little bit of on-the-road news. It's pretty interesting if you haven't traveled through the state of Arkansas in a while around Interstate 40 and 540. It's kind of unique. I stopped to pick up some materials yesterday, and while loading the materials, I decided to go get everybody something to drink, and I was right there in the very lower corner of Missouri in the town Noel, and asked the lady if there was any places close by, and she gave directions by saying, well, you go up to the interstate and go to the right. It's about the third McDonald's down, turn left. So instead of indicating the distance in miles or how much time relative to speed, she referenced it based on how many McDonald's I would pass. And she's right. There's virtually a McDonald's at every intersection and every exit ramp. And it's kind of like back in the 70s, we took a trip with a family down to New Orleans, and my parents got a little turned around, and they stopped and asked for directions, and the guy said, well, yeah, you go down this road, you'll pass about 10 bars, you'll turn left at the bar with the red roof, and you'll go about another 4 bars. And in Louisiana, they reference direction based on the number of bars that you pass, so it's kind of interesting.
Well, when I lived in Virginia, the natives gave directions based on landmarks. And they'd say, well, you go for a while, and you come up to the old Jones farm, and you make a right. And so I'd say, okay, so I go to the old Jones farm. They go, well, yeah, but they don't live there anymore. Yeah, directions are in local terms. There's no question about it. Or you go to the oak tree, the big one, the big oak tree.
That's right.
You can't miss it. You can't miss it, and then you turn after that. Well, is it like a block after that or a mile after that? Well, you'll see it. It's just you keep going, and right after the oak tree, you turn. You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, Mike, when I was interviewing students to be in my class, I had a class that was an elective in high school, and one of the questions that they had to be able to do in order to enroll in my class was they had to give directions from the only restaurant in town to the high school. And basically, it was really simple. It was leave the parking lot, turn left. Continue to the stop sign, turn right. Continue 11 miles, turn left at the T. The high school will be a quarter of a mile on the left. It was that simple. Do you know that was almost an impossible task for many high school students in the 1990s? They couldn't give directions in time, feet, miles. They couldn't do it. It was, and I don't know if it's because they never had to or what, but it was an impossible task for them. Seriously.
Well, there's a lot of people.
We taught them things that we taught them things they should have known in school. That was part of what I had to do. Teach them the things that they should have known or should have been taught. So that's an interesting point, Mike. So you're moving some farm materials. You got a trailer. You've got your truck. And are you in a safe place right now?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm parked actually underneath the shade of what looks like a nice pear tree, and just taking a break for the moment.
Okay, well, we're delighted that you're here. We were hoping that we'd get a chance to see you at the meetup last night. I mentioned that Mike Parsons is in town, close by, within a couple hundred miles, and we were hoping to see you. I know you were tied up with what you're doing. You're moving is a lot more work than you expected.
I planned on picking up the materials yesterday afternoon and then scooting up there to the meetup to say hi to everybody and see what Ziggy's is all about. I've kind of been curious to find out what that's all about. And Missouri is called the Show Me State for a reason. When I realized that the trailer wasn't going to get loaded before the sun went down, I had to show them. It was basically, me do it or it won't get done. And of course, counting material, that's an interesting thing, too. It was another show me state moment. I had to show them how 66 pieces of metal roofing is not 68. but it was fun, and we got it done. And, of course, heading back now, of course, when you're hauling a large load, you have to make sure everything is strapped down properly so that it won't blow around, and you have to, go at the speed at which your equipment is able to manage, and going up and down some of these hills, you have to accommodate for that. So, but, you and I had spoken a while back regarding the issue of the right to travel versus driving, and
yes,
I'd sent you some information. I believe you actually put it up on USA Prepare's website. And I know there's a growing movement. It's amazing. Every time I come up to Missouri, I see several people traveling, as the proper terminology is, and they don't have tags on their vehicle. They don't have driver's license. They're exercising their God-given right to move about the planet freely. And I was talking to a fellow, it's been about 6 months ago, and I was trying to explain this to him, and there was a fellow there that was a friend of his that was a policeman that hadn't been through the academy but maybe a year or two. He was fairly new to the force in Memphis. And I said, when you went through the training, did they explain to you folks that what you're doing is engaging the public in commerce? When you pull them over, you're engaging in commerce. It's not what people think. And he recalled an attorney giving a class and actually describing the technique that they use to engage the public in commerce. They'll ask you questions like, do you know how fast you were going? And they'll make you, and what they're doing is making you offers, hoping you will accept their offer. And once you accept their offer, then that opens the door to Pandora's box to where they can proceed further to do all these other things. You had mentioned, I believe it was a week or two ago, about your son being pulled over. And
yes,
being asked would he allow the officer to search his vehicle, to which he said, I think he said, no, thank you. And am I free to go, or am I under arrest? And to the degree that the officer had no reason to hold him, he just drove away. And he stood his ground, and that's what more and more people are starting to learn, is that they don't have to just bend over and take it. They can say no. They don't have to argue with the officer, and that's another key component that is part of this whole game, this whole illusion trickery that they're pulling on us, is that you do not want to create controversy. Therein lies another trap. If you create controversy, then they have some leverage, because then they can take it before an arbitrator, in this case a judge. You never want to give them controversy, so you never have to let a judge decide the controversy. And as long as you stay in your rightful place, I'm seeing more and more people properly exercising their rights and asserting these rights, and whereas they might get a ticket, they typically win when it goes to the court, because the judge doesn't have jurisdiction, and they understand that, and they don't like it, because it is all about revenue recovery and generating money for these corporations. And that's another issue. A lot of people don't realize that your states are all corporations. The cities are corporations. And by virtue of that, their bottom line is to make a profit, and you've got a cadre of bureaucrats that's whole existence is nothing more than finding ways to take people's money and control them. Mm-hmm. And that's got to change. That's got to stop. And I think it'll stop as soon as people wake up and realize that they're in control, and they start exercising their right to not go to Walmart or deal with the Walmart employees on the side of the road. Because it's no different than dealing with a cashier at Walmart or going to a restaurant when the judge says, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty? That's no different than the waiter taking your order. Would you like fries with that, sir? How about a shake? Extra cream on that piece of pie? He's giving you an offer, and if you accept his offer, you're in the trap.
Mike, when you mentioned our son being stopped at a gauntlet in Missouri, he was offered the question, you're not doing anything wrong. Do you mind if I look in your car? To which our son responded, that's a compound question. No, I am not doing anything wrong. And no, you may not look in my car. I mean, that's how my son responded. Sternly, but politely. And he was in a position where he was able to tell Homeland Security, you may not look in my car. And then the Homeland Security person said, in body armor, I'm being a big, imposing guy, said, you mind if I look in your trunk? And my son said, no, you may not look in my trunk. And then my son waited a short time, a very short time, and he said, well, if I'm not under arrest, I'm leaving. And he drove away slowly. I mean, he didn't peel out. He just, drove at a normal speed. But he exercised his rights. Now, Mike, when you mentioned the officer trying to force you into a response, like, do you know how fast you were going? How would you respond to that, Mike?
What is the nature of your inquiry, officer? So I put the onus back on him. I'm going to narrow him down exactly at that moment as to what is his grounds for pulling me over. Is there an emergency? How can I assist you? If he's just on a fishing expedition, it's not going anywhere. It's going to stop real quick. I'm going to find out exactly what is the nature of his stop. Mm-hmm. And he'll probably say something like, well, I just want to know if you know how fast you're going.
Mm-hmm. That's natural. Let's talk about that when we come back on the other side. This is with us, Mike from Tennessee. And Mike, you're absolutely right. When many of us get pulled over, the first question that we're asked is, do you know how fast you were driving or going? And then your response to that is, what is the nature of your inquiry? And then I know that the second time the officer speaks, it's going to be, because I want to know how fast you were going. Do you know how fast you're going? So what do you say to that, Mike?
Are you conducting an investigation?
Okay. And so what's the answer to that?
Well, if the officer says, well, yes, I am, then Are you asking me to make an admission or a confession, officer? Then he realizes that's exactly what he's doing. He's wanting me to make an admission or a confession. Then if he says, yes, that's what I'm doing, say, I'm not going to give you any admission or any confession. I don't have to. I have a reason to believe that, no, if you have a reason to believe that I was speeding, then issue me a citation and we'll see you in court.
And what is typically the response? Is it, listen, I was just kidding. I just wanted to say hi. You know, I like your car. I wanted to, see if it was all as cracked up to be. I mean, what happens next, Mike?
Well, if it goes in that order, then typically the officer's either going to write you a ticket or let you go. The thing is that he has to articulate his cause for pulling you over in the first place. Without probable cause or some type of reason, such as if he believed that his radar detector was able to identify you going in excessive speed or something, then that's where they try to pull you over. But, the common law is you can't be reckless. Speeding is not reckless. If you're swerving and you're nearly missing people, that's reckless. If you're driving fast past pedestrians in a walkway, that's reckless. If you obviously hit someone or property, that's reckless. That's common law, and you can be charged, ticketed, arrested, prosecuted, the whole 9 yards for that. That's what they should go after, but they don't. What they're trying to do is find these ancillary ways that they can attach a revenue stream to something that you're doing that isn't hurting anyone. And that's totally contrary to what the founding of this country was about, was the ability to live freely without the tyranny of a government wanting to pick your pocket at every corner of the road and every turn. You find an officer in the city of Memphis right now as we speak. I bet you cannot drive around Interstate 240 and go a half a mile without seeing an officer pulling someone over, giving them a ticket. And especially the first day of the month, they've got one or two cars set up at the major thoroughfares, the arteries coming in, and they're scanning license plates. And when they see a person who's a day out of registration and their tag's not registered, they've got cars lined up to pull them over. It's revenue generation 101. They don't care about safety. It's not about safety. Folks, we have a standing army, which is against the Constitution in this country right now. Your son experienced when he witnessed the Department of Homeland Security in full body armor engaging him on the streets of the United States of America. That is unconstitutional. They have declared war, and it's on us, the people of this country.
You're right. And Mike, when the officers ask, or the cops ask about your knowledge of your speed, they ask, do you know how fast you were driving? I've never heard anybody ask me how fast I was traveling. It's how fast I was driving.
I use the word because they're wanting you to admit commerce-related activity. Driving is commerce-related in the statutes. They have a reference and definitions of words, and it can be argued that they're interchangeable, but you really don't want to leave them any options. And so it's all about the proper use of words. I think I told you this one time. I went into a court one time, and they called me up, and I went up, and you've seen me in person. When I go into court, I look like an attorney. I'm wearing a suit.
Hey, Mike, hold that thought. Hold that thought. When we come back, Mike's going to tell us what happened when he went into court looking like an attorney. USAPrepares.com. I'm Vin Finelli. Mike Parsons is with us, and I just wanted to mention, class, one of your instructors, Craig Douglas. He's the radiation detection guy. He comes, he's been to all of our expos, and he spends a lot of time in front of the judge, and that's because he travels without a driver's license. He doesn't need one. So he travels throughout the country, and he goes to all kinds of shows. And he gets pulled over a lot. And what's happening is he just doesn't give in. He doesn't give in. And certain areas of the country have now decided that they're just not going to mess with him anymore. It's too much trouble for them to mess with him because he doesn't give up. That's Craig Douglas. And I'm hoping that he's going to be at the MAX, the Military Antiques Extravaganza in Monroeville, October 4th and 5th. And I'm going to be broadcasting live on Setup Day, October 3rd and October 4th from the Military Antiques Extravaganza. I've been going to those for many, many years, and I've been unable to go because of this broadcast, but I'm going to be there broadcasting, so I've worked it out. So I hope to see you at the Military Antiques Extravaganza. Information's on the website. So, Mike Parsons, you mentioned that when you go to court looking as if you are an attorney. Tell us about that, please.
Well, I do, and these guys are so pompous and arrogant, and they like to see people walk in there with T-shirts and blue jeans, and they like to talk down to you and look down their noses and such. And when they see someone walk in wearing a suit and tie, pressed, clean, squared away, and a bit, regardless of my 3-foot-long queue, they take notice. Especially if they don't know me, they think, okay, this is one of the brethren, another learned man of the laws and the legal system. And so you tend to get a little bit of respect from that standpoint, but you can also have a little fun with them. And this was a case where I was given a ticket. I think it was probably 20 years ago. It's been a long time since I've gotten a ticket. I think they got tired of messing with me, but be that as it may, they called me up and, instead of doing as some people say, stand mute and turn you back to the court and all this nonsense, I walked up and I asked the judge, I said, Your Honor, loud enough so that the whole courtroom could hear me intentionally. I said, Your Honor, may I accost you for a moment? Well, I could hear gasp behind me as people, he's going to accost the judge. He wants to accost the judge. And the common language, accost, most people assume that means you want to attack or assault. That's what most people think the word means. But if you look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, Bouvier's Law Dictionary, you'll find that it has multiple meanings, including approach. And it's used quite frequently, and they'll use it to their advantage because they play on people's ignorance. When you're in their arena, you're playing by their rules. That's why they've got that battle flag posted behind or beside the judge with the gold fringe. That's an admiralty court, and they've got a totally separate set of rules. They don't recognize the Constitution. It's statutory at best. If you're lucky, it's not the supreme law of the land. That's why they get by with all of these arbitrary rulings that have nothing to do with the Constitution. But in this last case, where I was in there for a speeding ticket, which I wasn't speeding, but the point is that all these people behind me were having coronaries. The DA, he looks over and says something to the effect, you smart something and other. And the judge looks up at me and kind of grins and says, yeah, come on up. Those are the only two people in the room that understood what I was saying, but they realized everybody else thought I said something else. Mm-hmm. Words mean things, and you have to learn the words. You have to articulate the words properly to these officers because they're trained in words. They're looking for words. They're looking for ways to trip you up. And they're no smarter than anybody else out there. They've just had this training that most people haven't. And once you learn the secret, once you learn the trick, it's what did Christ say? Woe unto ye lawyers, for you've taken away the keys of knowledge. They changed the language. They're using the Greek versus the Hebrew, so they don't know what's being said. And, of course, when you get an attorney, ye entered not in yourself, and ye hindered those who did, meaning they didn't go beyond the bar, so their person is not at risk, but yet you are. They have no skin in the fight. No matter what happens at the end of the day, that attorney will not go to jail, will not be fined, will not lose anything. You, on the other hand, that's a different story. But you have to be aware of these things, and you have to not turn over your rights. You have to learn how to not acquiesce, but to stand your ground. And in your case, you have to be ready by asking, what is the nature of your inquiry if they pull you over? And if they ask to search your car, just plainly say no. And if they start searching your vehicle, tell them, stop searching my vehicle, stop searching my property. Now, if they have a dog and the dog indicates something in your car, which dogs love to sit because they get a biscuit. I mean, that's nothing new. That happens all the time. The question is, does that give the officer the right to search? Well, no, it doesn't. It gives him the grounds to go get a search warrant. He has no right to search your vehicle or your property without your consent or without a warrant. Remember, he's a corporate officer. That's the difference. And if they persist, ask them to articulate the nature of your criminal activity. They have to do that. The Supreme Court has said officers must articulate his suspicion of criminal activity before he can proceed under the doctrine of probable cause. Proceeding under that doctrine only gives him the right to go and get a search warrant. There's no condition where he has the right to search unless it is with your consent. Most people don't know these things. They don't study the cases. The Supreme Court has ruled you cannot convert a right into a privilege. And also, the claim of exercising a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime. That's Miller versus U.S. 230F, somewhere in the section. But, they'll try to tell you that what you're doing, which is a right, is a crime. Traveling is a right. It's not a crime. And once you learn these things, it opens up a whole new world to you. You can learn to be left the heck alone. And most people, that's all they want, is they just want to be left alone. They just want to be able to move about this country freely and unencumbered. But as most people know, the government's been hijacked. You've got corporations posing as governments, which they're not. And until enough people are educated and we have the ability to take back control of our rights through taking back control of this government and shutting down vast portions of it, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be taken advantage of. And it's imperative that you learn and that your family and friends learn so that they're not victimized. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't victimize you. You can know everything that there is to know and still be victimized. But if you make your case, if you record, and every time you go have a recorder, have a court report or something, then you can go back after the fact and undo things, hopefully, in most cases. And I've got friends that one fellow's a retired lieutenant colonel, very highly decorated Air Force pilot. He travels. He does not have any government-issued licenses. Once he learned this stuff about 20 years ago, he got into the process of getting rid of all this stuff. Great guy, very intelligent. I've got another friend who's an electrician. He's gotten rid of all his licenses, but not ready for prime time. And so when he got a ticket, they threatened him. He got scared, and now he's running as fast as he can to go get his license back and do everything they say because, well, he had to spend a couple of days in jail, and it scared him, as it should anybody. Those are dangerous places, and people end up getting hurt because of a corrupt system for things where no one else is hurt. And the issues that people don't realize is that ticket, I think they call that a bill of attainder, and I think the last time I checked in the Constitution, bill of attainders are not constitutional. So they can't even bring you into court legally with a bill of attainder. And this is what happens every day. There's no complaint because there's no victim. Without a victim, what do they call it? You lack corpus delicti? I'm not an attorney. I just read. It's amazing what you can learn if you read.
Mike, you're talking about the dogs that the cops have with them, and the dog might indicate, yeah, let's check this car out, and then the cop or the handler will say, I just got the indication that we need to search your vehicle because now we have probable cause, because the dog reacted in a certain way. You mentioned the biscuits. Now, we carry dog biscuits in our car.
Yeah.
All of our vehicles. Now, have you ever considered giving one of your dog biscuits to one of those dogs?
I've never been stopped and had my vehicle searched by a drug-sniffing dog, so, but yeah, I would probably start petting and playing with the dog, and because of the smell of wolves all over me and my other animals, they would probably come right to me and, be excited over all the different smells. So, dogs are led by the nose and their stomach, just like a lot of people, unfortunately. It's animal instinct, hey, that smells like a good pot roast over there. I'm going to go back to doing that yard work after I get done sitting at the table for about 30 minutes and filling up on pot roast. But, the thing is that people believe because the TV says that they have a right to search when they don't have a right to search. And just because a state passes a law that's not lawful doesn't give them a right. There are laws passed all the time. Wasn't it down in Texas where two ladies were stopped on the side of the road and the officers put their hands inside of them and used the same glove? And this is Nazi Germany in your face. And, if there had been a man around, there would have been a man. He should have been on top of that officer, beating his brains in for assaulting these women. Back in the day, that's what would have happened when I was growing up. Is you don't let anybody put their hands on the ladies, let alone you. But now it's just commonplace. People go to the airport, and that's why I don't go to airports. If I fly, I just rent a plane or borrow a plane, and I go. And that's so nice
Mike,
to be able to...
Mike, hold that thought, and I'm going to mention something that I do whenever I have to go to court. We'll be right back. Class, I was just thinking of some of the characteristics of those of us at usaprepares.com, and I'll bet this applies to many of the class as well. We don't take direction all that well, and we can't hold down a job. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about Craig Douglas, the freeze-dried guy, Roy Birdsong, Mike Parsons, and the rest of us. Seriously, we just, we don't take direction well from people who don't know that much, and we say no a lot. We say no in the face of tyranny. We just say no. Mike, I wanted to share with you something that I've done. I have not been to court to defend myself in a while, but I do remember bringing a box with me, and a sealed box, and I just sit in the courtroom, and then a prosecutor comes over and he goes, "Hi, I'm Joe Dokes, Mr. Finelli. I'd like to talk to you about what's going to happen today and what we're going to do to you." And then they look at the box and they go, "What's in the box?" And I go, I can't. I'll show you, but I can't show you right here." And they go, "What do you have with you?" And I go, "Well, I'll be glad to show you, but later, during the trial, I'll show you." And they can't stand it, Mike. They can't stand it. They don't know what's in the box. They think it's really significant, and they cannot stand the thought of not knowing. It is so distracting that they want to get away from whatever it is they think I'm going to do, and it always works. Have you tried that?
Yeah, they enjoy a rigged game. They want to make sure that they've got every corner covered, and when there's some question mark out there, it chews at them.
It really does, Mike. I hint around the edges, and I say, well, it's evidence, and I really want to show you, but I can't. But I will. At the right time, we will all get a chance to see it, all of us together at the same time. And they just can't stand it because they believe they know the answers to the questions they're going to ask. They know how small of a box they're going to put us in, and they can't stand the unknown. So just a suggestion. It's kind of an amusing thing to do, and it doesn't have to be a big box. Maybe 1 foot square will do the job for most cases. Brown box, nice box, not a junky box. It has to be nice cardboard box, sealed. And you don't have to have it's going to be inspected when you go through the metal detectors, but it can be anything. It can be your notes. It can be, 3 pieces of paper. It can be anything you want. I think it's a really neat thing to do. So I just wanted to share that with you. Mike, so the game is rigged. The prosecutor is on the other side. The judge is on the other side. The officers of the court are on the other side. Everybody's on the other side except us, right?
Pretty much. It's a stacked deck. It's a rigged system. It's a sham. It's a fraud. It's just total in-your-face Nazi 101, and you're dealing with a bunch of sociopaths who are control freaks, and that's pretty much what we're dealing with on an ongoing basis throughout this country. And I think Dr. Shealy, nailed it last week when we spoke briefly. He said, this is leading up to, unfortunately, what looks like another revolution. But, I think it would be the third revolution. I consider the Civil War as the second revolution, because we were basically fighting against a corrupt government that wanted to control the freedoms of people to disassociate themselves with the Union. And even Massachusetts legislature wrote letters and passed resolutions saying that, yes, we agree with the southern states' right to dissolve their bonds with the Union at any point, because it's a voluntary union. Otherwise, you're a captive audience, you're a slave, and that's the height of tyranny. And they knew that. People in New Hampshire know that. I mean, you've got, the right to travel is a well-established common law right that does not owe its existence to the federal government. It is recognized by courts as a natural right. And this is a Sacramento versus Dulles case. I mean, there's case after case after case after case after case where the courts have done the right thing. But when the court doesn't do the right thing, you have to realize you're not dealing with a real court, because the only purview of the court, the only reason they exist is to protect our rights. And when they cease to be the protector of
we're out of time. Mike Parsons, thanks so much for being with us. Mike will be back again and again. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next